So if you can
Trish, can you mute,
welcome
please?
yourself as you are. Without knowing anything. Without any past. No need to recollect anything. So allow your experience to be what it is. Meaning, no need to engage in any way. And notice that awareness is effortless. There is nothing that you need to do to be that which you are, which is this transparent, aware presence that knows itself, knows it is, and knows that it is real, universal, meaning borderless, infinite. So go directly to that which you are. Nothing that's objectified, but this light of awareness that effortlessly is and knows it is. It doesn't matter much what appears to you. You can let that be, whatever it is. And simply recognize that silent, still presence, which is perfect as it is. Which permeates your entire experience, which is the mother and the father of all experience, which is the silent reality that seemingly takes on all forms without any concern. Like in your night dreams, you take on all forms, dream characters and dream events without any concern. Like a little child running in the field freely, expressing its freedom in every gesture, in every step. Similarly, you are the invisible infinite, playing in the playground of creativity without any concern. The freedom, the joy of being, which is completely oblivious to the concern about any direction or any result or any consequence, or without any concern about any achievement. Freedom from the need to achieve, from the need to prove, to become, to improve. The separate bubble of your story and your history and your past and your future is imaginary. There's no reality to it. You do not need to define yourself in any way. Whichever way you define yourself is a limitation, is erroneous, is a diminution, a reduction of the totality of being, of the wholeness of being, which is God's being. There are no personal concerns in God's mind. No worries, no regrets, no division. Here we are, this shining light of awareness. Here it is. Absolute. Once you leave the illusion of being a mother, a father, a daughter, a son, somebody, you do not end. Rather, you come to your true self, your innate reality, like when the clouds that are veiling the wide open sky, once the clouds dissipate, it's revealed a wide open sky. The eternity and absolute reality of being. You do not need to separate yourself from your innate nature of presence, beingness. You do not need to leave the peace of being in order to experience a sense of lack and seeking. You do not need to keep defining yourself in terms of the past and the future. To reduce yourself to a set of sensations and images and stories and narrative, the me narrative, which is of no use to awaken to the reality of being. Once you see it, you comprehend it, you don't return to the illusion. God's light and God's wisdom is available, never hidden. The I is this transparent, aware presence that has no name. It is not a male or female presence. It's not a tall or short awareness or presence. That I, this aware presence, is not contained inside a room or is not contained inside a body-mind. Be true to your experience, that the body appears to you, thoughts appear to you. You do not appear inside a thought, or the you that appears inside of a thought is the false you. It's a storyline. You cannot abide as your true nature, as your essential being, as a person, as a separate entity. Abiding is the recognition of God's truth, of God's reality. The I am, I, Supreme Being, am. not a historical me with all the barnacles and all the scars and medals. This imaginary, limited, mortal, rotting, body mind. Whenever you say I or refer to I, you're referring to the one I, the reality of being, the amness, the beingness, the isness, which does not belong to a particular mind, no matter how polished this mind imagines itself to be. But one I, one reality. The only reality, the complete intimacy of one non-dual. Once you realize that Santa Claus was your father or uncle dressing up in the white beard and the red hat and big black boots, you don't need to pray for Santa Claus to bring you the gifts next year. You don't need to return into your bubble. You don't need to replay the dead, the old, the past. You don't need to unbury the dead. So if you have any questions, anything that you would like to discuss or explore, please make sure to unmute your mic. And if you care to turn on your video, then we can also see each other. So any questions? Hello, Holger.
Hello, Magdi. Just a big thank you for your wonderful sharing. It's just so beautiful. I had storms, mind storms coming up in me, and old familiar things, but there was so much underlying peace. This was so beautiful. I wasn't pulled in. I was just able to look at the thing, and there was so much freedom. Even the old energies were there, but there was so much clarity and freedom. And this was so beautiful. I mean, so amazing. And I just wanted to thank you for your teaching and your speaking and your diligence and all the good stuff. Thank you.
Magdi.
Hello, Rashmi.
Hi. Is Holger done? I'm not sure. Okay. Magdi, yesterday you said, talking to Amna about the hand moving, that if you didn't know the word hand, or if you didn't know the word moving, then it wouldn't exist. But you would still see perceptions, right? I was a bit confused by that.
Yes. When you take a close look at perception, Rashmi, you may comprehend that that which is perceived and that which perceives are not two. That the subject, the so-called subject, and the object are not two. So the question would be then, what is perception? When the subject and the object are one, because the word subject is a different word from the word object. One is called subject, the other one is object. They are seemingly two. But what would be perception when the subject and the object are one, meaning one could say, as if in the absence of object, in absence of subject.
Yeah, okay, I understand a little more. So if I believe that I'm a body, then if I believe I'm an object, then I see other objects. But if there is only one reality, then everything is that reality and you can't separate it from yourself.
Yes. Yes, but yes, also in looking at your, let's say, let's use the word experience right now, I mean, looking right now. In looking right, yes, I see you, Trish. I'm increasing the volume. Thank you, Trish. Some volume issues here, on and off. So I'll keep an eye on it. When you look, you contemplate your experience right now, Rashmi, before the download of the thought, I am hearing these words or I am perceiving this perception. Just imagine that somehow an infinitesimal moment before that thought arises, before the subject and the object, before the me, as you were so wisely saying, before that. It's a way of speaking. When I say before, it's just a metaphoric way of speaking. But you will find that, in fact, the narrative is an add-on. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And not that there is an issue with the narrative. It's not a judgmental or a critical observation. It's just sort of to be clear, to have clarity that it seems that I would venture to say that we live in the add-on. Let me put it that way. It's as if our life, although the reality of our experience is awareness, it is as if we're living in an add-on, in a virtual realm, which has two aspects to it. One of it is functional. Makes sense to say, oh, I see my car, and I see that my car is parked next to your car. It's a functional. This narrative is not a bad thing. That's one aspect of the narrative, is that it's functional. The other aspect is completely irrational, which is that I am separate from whatever, that there is a separate me, a separate consciousness, a personal reality, a personal self that is the reality of my experience. The me, the bundle of thoughts and images and feelings. So that's the aspect of the add-on that we refer to as ignorance. The other aspect of the add-on is just the namarupa, the
names and forms.
Yes, right, the names and forms, which not a problem. An apple is, this is an apple, and oh, that is an orange. Okay, no, not a problem.
So when also as a continuation, when you say that there is no body, is it because all I know about it or people know about their bodies are perceptions? I don't understand when people say like there is no body, but I can clearly see that there is like a material object.
Yeah, not certain. Maybe if I did, then I need to clarify myself. Hopefully I'm careful not to say that there is no body. There is no personal self. There is no body in the sense that there isn't like a somebody. Is a me, a reality to the me character.
Okay, you don't mean the physical body.
When you look at the body, quote unquote, the physical body, experience of the body is the realm of sensations.
Yeah.
And the realm of sensation arises in the open space of awareness, the open field of awareness, the spaciousness of awareness. So our body, our sensory body, is an open space of sensation. And this open field of sensory, the sensory realm, the physical aspect of the sensory realm, which is the feeling body, is its interaction with the world, with matter, let's say, with the world. So when you bump into a table, let's say your toe or your elbow bumps into the table, there is a sensation with information. Yes? So
Yes. Yeah.
this sensation, this information, it delineates a physical body. So there's a particular interaction, which is a sensation, and in particular interaction with the physical world that sort of delineates the physical body. So the physical body, in a way, is an interactive, the field of the sensory field interacting with the world.
Yeah.
And the both the open field of sensation and its particular interaction with the world are known, are phenomenal events, let's say, arising within awareness. They are known by awareness, and they arise within the spaciousness of awareness. You follow?
Yeah.
Which is slightly different from the model that there is an actual physical body that is sort of separate from the realm of sensation, and that's separate from awareness. So the physical body is not like the metaphor of building a house. It's not like a house made out of bricks or blocks, or it's more of an interactive field of sensation interacting with the world.
Okay.
And the main thing to comprehend in the teaching Advaita is that the realm of sensation and the interaction of the realm of sensation with the world, meaning the body as we are talking about it, doesn't define consciousness.
Yeah, the body is in consciousness, right? I mean, not that the conscious.
Yes, it's not.
In a way of speaking.
Yes, right. Yes. In a way of speaking, yes. And so consciousness is not defined. Actually, it's not defined, period. But in particular, in our conversation about the body, is not defined by the body. It's not defined by sensations. It's not defined by the interactions of the sensory realm. Oops, thank you, Holger. it's not defined by the by the body. In other words, that awareness, consciousness is not a form or defined by whatever arises. Whatever.
So when you say transparency of being, you mean like absence of phenomenal qualities, or is it like a sensation of being not dense? What exactly do you mean by transparency of being?
So transparency of being, when I say transparency of being, I am not removing the phenomenal realm. So it's not an absence of experience or an absence of phenomena, but it is being is not being something. Being, I would say, as a way of speaking, precedes being something or being someone, or so being is non-phenomenal. Like the infinite space is not made out of atoms, molecules, and gluons, or whatever. It's not made out of elements. So being, first, it must be clear that we're not talking theoretically. Being is real. We're talking about the Sat, I am, the amness. So being is non-phenomenal. Are you okay with that, or we need to go into this?
Yeah, it's nominal, not phenomenal.
Yes. So when being gets an attribute, a phenomenal attribute, it seems that it becomes phenomenal, but it does not. So when you imagine the Empire State Building, you visualize the Empire State Building, it is as if your imagination, which is space-like, takes on the form of whatever 400 feet building, I don't know how, 700 foot tall building, while in fact your imagination is still transparent. It's still space-like. You follow?
Yes.
So, but the impression is that being is no longer, that Sat is gone now. Now there is a building. It's as if Sat has become a physical, an object. But the thing to sort of comprehend is that an object doesn't have a physical reality of its own, independent of such shit, independent of beingness, awareness. Because one of the way of looking at it is that such shit is real, is not subject to time and space. Presence does not increase in time, or awareness is not function. It doesn't depend on experience. Awareness isn't increasing over time. It's the same awareness that perceives right now than the awareness that perceived the breakfast you had this morning. While the Empire State Building, when you come in 20,000 years, Empire State Building, there's no Empire State Building, I'm assuming there's no Empire State Building. So one presence is the reality of the impression of the impermanent. The impermanent, the reality of the impermanent is the permanence, the permanent. The reality of the impermanent is the permanent, which is awareness, consciousness, Satchitananda, Satchit. The presence, being, presence awareness, being awareness. So the transparency of being refers to the reality. That reality is not made out of, I use the word transparency in contrast to opacity or density or materiality, sort of non-phenomenal, like the transparency of being, which is the reality of consciousness, which is transparent, and being is presence. It is the reality of being, and it is a reality that is in the presence of a perception, as well as between perceptions. When a perception ends, another perception hasn't arisen yet. The transparency of being doesn't disappear. So it's across the board. It's like the screen of awareness is transparent, has no color, is shapeless, formless. And it remains the same shapeless, formless awareness, aware presence. Whether there is a conversation going on, whether there is a perception going on or not. So keep in mind, Rashmi, that perception, our experience, let's say, for example, hearing, is not a continuous experience. Hearing is a series of waves of frequencies with a certain density and a certain amplitude that when they are condensed in a certain in a certain density and a certain harmony, it strikes it creates a certain frequent vibrational frequency in the inner ear, and so it's a series of vibrations, and between every vibration, which is a certain state, there is a non-state. So it's not like a continuous state. There are a certain bleeps of frequencies with gaps in between them, but the gaps are so are conductive. They're conductive. So perception and hearing and perceiving and sensing is a series of frames of vibrations, and they arise within the gap, and it is, the gap is conductive, and that gap is when we're speaking is awareness that provides the impression of continuity. So when you look at our experience, say our experience is continuous. I'm hearing these words and I'm following this conversation. The continuity is not the continuity of the vibrations or of the frames. It is the continuity of awareness. So the transparency of being, another word for awareness, presence, is the continuity, the uninterrupted aspect of our experience, which we refer to as the reality, that which is independent of the phenomenal realm.
Thank you, Magdi.
Okay, Rashmi, okay. So one way of saying it is the transparency of being, the infinity and eternity of consciousness that takes on within itself, because it's only reality, and to itself appears from itself, and so it creates within from itself and to itself the universes, worlds, bodies, minds, and so much more, the infinite potential of creation. Via the human mind, the experience is very limited, meaning the peep we have onto the universe is very the peep we have.
People, yeah.
We are looking to the peak hole. So the peak hole onto the universe, onto creation, is a very narrow peak hole, and But that's in one direction. That's from the direction of the human mind. But from the direction of consciousness, then there is no peak hole. There is the complete availability of consciousness to itself. Or when we are saying it for consciousness to know itself, well, a recognition of consciousness, because consciousness cannot be itself. It is itself. It's a way of speaking. So there is, from one direction, there is a narrow peak hole. From the other direction, there is no peak hole.
It's infinite. So when I've heard Francis say, as you become more transparent, meaning like you know yourself more, what exactly is he saying? Because the self it doesn't change, right?
Yes.
So is it that you're the self knowing the self more past all these like illusory perceptions, etc.?
Yes, there is that aspect, of course, of the self knowing itself, not confusing itself with the mind, but also, and more importantly, also that in a way that's also was the title of this meeting, being established as the self. More importantly is that at the let's say feeling state or being state or experiential state, the experiential realm, the opacity, there is no opacity. So there is no separation, no subject and object. You don't need to think about it. It's at the experiential level, at the feeling level, at the somatic level. There is no more separation. So the way sometimes we speak of it pedagogically is that first you are the self, the personal self, and then you are consciousness, and then all is consciousness. So when Francis speaks about, just my words, I'm not speaking, Francis,
Sure. Yeah.
just sort of secondhand interpretation or a comment, speaking about that you become more and more transparent in that you're in your feeling state and being state. There is no more bumping into anything. There is no more
Resistance.
No more resistance and no effort to, for a certain time. There is an effort. There need a proper time and place for effort. But then it's the effortless peace and happiness, the effortless.
So it's both psychological resistance and also in your body. Like sometimes you feel contractions and all when you're believing to be a separate self.
Absolutely, they're not separate. The contractions within the body and the psychological are connected. When there isn't a psychological resistance or a recollection about the past and a regret or a sorrow, which is psychological, in the absence of that, in the absence of the psychology, because psychology always refers to me in time, somebody in time, past, future, or whatever, in relationship. Whenever there isn't the psychology, there is just presence. But for the psychology to end, the personal self, which is realized to be false, has to actually die, has to go completely die. well, Francis often says 99.9%, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
We don't be like, you know, so absolutist. So that then there aren't any dead skeletons in the cellar. There are no more traces of ignorance.
So like the vasanas are gone too.
Yes. 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 99.99%.
That would be good enough for me. Thank you so much, Magdi.
It's been lovely to be with you.
Same, thank you.
Any questions?
Hi, Magdi.
Amna, hello, Amna.
What are vasanas?
So vasanas is in Sanskrit or in Hindu or Indian term that refers to some residual tendencies of the sense of separation within the feeling state. So once you comprehend that I refers to consciousness, that I am consciousness, that what I is consciousness, there is an understanding there is a clarity about what I is, and the tendency to refer to yourself as a person, as a mortal body mind, as an event in time and space diminishes, which is a very good thing, and it's actually an essential thing along the path. But what also remains, although you have the understanding that I am consciousness, that I is consciousness, and that consciousness is not personal, what remains are residual tendencies of feeling and acting and perceiving and responding and reacting as from the old model as a personal self. And they vary from body mind to body mind. Some vasanas are pretty thick and heavy and take a little bit of time to sort of be free of them. And of course, there are many other vasanas that are less lighter and maybe easier to free yourself from. What's important is to once you are along the path and you come to the understanding of what we are speaking about and what is your essential nature, is to in your life to use every or consider every quote unquote challenge or situation that may be challenging or seem challenging, to take it as an opportunity to establish yourself as consciousness. And by utilizing what life is presenting you as opportunities, you will find that the vasanic aspect of your life diminishes.
Like earlier in the meditation, you mentioned the word self-improvement, like as the personal self. Is that like the pull towards that? Would that be considered a vasana?
Self-improvement. I don't remember using the word self-improvement because
I think you were saying that awareness is not about, I don't remember exactly what you said, but something along these lines.
I don't remember myself, but so a good example of Vipassana, for example, in my case, although there was clarity about the reality of consciousness, I still was feeling and living and experiencing a sense of angst and worry and concern when it came to my brothers and my mother. I was brought up with a very heavy sense of responsibility towards my brother and my mother, and that sort of kept arising in my feeling state and in my life and in my thinking state, to sort of be a savior, be their savior, be their. So if vasanas are ways we are feeling in spite of our understanding that I am consciousness, we still feel a personal there is some personal experience that seems to be really important, and which refers to yourself as somebody, as a mother, a father, as somebody, as a person.
When that like, for that example, whenever that came up for you, like, how did you establish yourself?
I was very sensitive to, I think we talked about that yesterday or last, about we become sensitive to unhappiness. We become more and more intolerant. That's one way of saying it. We become more and more sensitized to unhappiness. So when you notice unhappiness, it's a good time for you to stop, pause, and take a look. Take a look at what is going on here. Is what to examine, to investigate the unhappiness. So I think in my case, and I would say in the case of most of us, we become sensitive to the unhappiness, and we at some point it becomes clear to us that somehow we are maintaining it. Something within us is maintaining this unhappiness. So we take a look and we find that, some belief that we have about the personal belief that's coming out of ignorance, a belief that I'm a son or a daughter or a mother or a father, whatever. This belief, and so that you can you can deconstruct your feeling state, and also refer to your understanding about the universality of consciousness, that it is, that consciousness is freedom, is happiness, is beauty, is love, is not in the servitude business. And the deconstruction of your experience would be to sort of see that the unhappiness that you're experiencing is still referring to some resistance, and that this resistance is assuming that there is a sense of danger for somebody, while in fact all what is happening is that there is an old echo, an old pattern of sensation overlaid with the belief that these sensations are going to hurt you or kill you or harm you, which is just a thought, a belief, a mind impression. So there is both the aspect of allowing the experience, inviting the experience, and sensing it without adding on a story. So it's a little tricky initially, but eventually you see that it's not that tricky, that you can go to the sensation and experience the sensation as a neutral event without adding on, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Or why is this happening to me? Or when is this going to stop happening to me?
You mentioned the word servitude? What is
yes.
It? What is servitude?
To be like a servant that my life, or one important aspect of my life, is to save or serve.
So
in my case, my family and my mom, you know.
Yeah. So back to like self-improvement. Like I have
when you say self-improvement, so there's one self. There's only one self, yes? There's only one self, yes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Self, which I refer to as I. I refers to the self, refers to itself as I. And that I, which is the self, is not an object. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because objects is what I perceive as a way of speaking. Okay, it's just a way of speaking, Rashmi. So that I is that which perceives. Okay, it's just a way of speaking. Okay, I'm not going to go into perception now. We'll go about with another time. So that there is the reality of I, of consciousness. And so it's not an object. Object is what we refer to as object is an illusion of an arising, something arising. So that which is not an object is what I is what the self is. The reality of being is the self. It's another word for the self, the reality of being. So how can you improve reality?
You can't.
Right, so self-improvement is, if we're talking about self-improvement, it's a different lingo. I don't know what, I guess we're talking about becoming a better skier, becoming a better musician. It's about the body, mind, image aspect.
Yeah.
Which is not a problem. You can, self-improvement is perfect. I can improve your skills in your cooking skills, your dancing skills, your communication skills, etc. That would be self-improvement. But I wouldn't use the word self. Self is confusing, because it's like what two selves. Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when that comes up and it's like not happy, what's the and there's a pull.
There is a pull?
Yeah.
In which direction?
Like the identification of like the body mind and wanting to improve that. and
It's unhappy?
like wanting to, yeah.
Oh.
And wanting to improve my life. And then, and like, there's a concern that even like interest in like interest in truth is
but interest in truth is not opposed to improving various aspects of your life.
Yeah, but it's like when you're using that to improve, I'm just concerned that I'm going in the wrong direction.
Well, there is your life, there is your relationships, your body, your home, things you enjoy, things you like to celebrate. So yes, we do our best with that. If we are in a job that we don't like, we look for developing skills, and we look for opportunities to do something that we enjoy more. If we're in a relationship that is not very happy, we explore ways of improving our communications, our relationship as much as we can, or even leaving the relationship. So there is that aspect of your life that is going on, but the key thing is that you don't feel that your happiness depends on that. So your happiness, if it's depending on your relationship or on things in your life, then your happiness is not complete. It is dependent upon. So it's important to be clear that happiness is our true nature. You have to come to find the happiness that is causeless. The happiness that is causeless is available to you as you stop defining yourself from within the bubble, the me bubble. Stop defining yourself in terms of the past and the future, so that there can be a freedom in a moment. You can realize the freedom of being, the joy of being, the creativity of being, the celebratory aspect of being. Not to just keep returning to the content of your mind to define your life. The content of your mind is if you use that to define yourself, to define your happiness, then your happiness is constantly changing and twirling, and so the happiness doesn't depend on the mind, doesn't depend on experiences, doesn't depend on your great experiences, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations. So that's important to understand, that what you truly are is if it's dependent, if what you are is dependent on any, your relationship with your family, if it's dependent on your mother loving you or whatever is dependent, then my God, it's not really happy. See, so, and happiness is very important. I mean, happiness is, and love and beauty is very important. It's very important. So,
and it can only be experienced now. It's not like a future.
yes, absolutely. I mean, it's beautiful to have happiness in the future, but whenever the future is, so, but today is the future of yesterday. So yes, so happiness is it's not a mind state. It's not a certain particular experience. It's important to confuse happiness with a happy body or a happy life, a happy world. See, so happy world is beautiful. A happy body, great. Happy mind, great. But that's not happiness. Happiness is irrespective of the... So the sun can shine onto a beautiful lake, a beautiful pond, or it can shine onto a storm, or it can shine onto a volcanic eruption. The sun shines onto a volcanic eruption that is causing harm into the neighboring villages. It's the same shine. The sunshine is, in this metaphor, the happiness. Doesn't matter what the mind impressions are. Now, having said that, once you are freer and freer, more and more established as consciousness, as the peace of being, as a consequence, as a result, the world, body, mind are also affected. You will experience peace, love and beauty in the world, body, and mind.
So, like earlier when you said like wanting, you didn't exactly say these words, but like wanting something, believing that it would make me happy. And I was noticing, my case sometimes, it's like wanting something and it's like, I know this is not gonna make me happy, or I don't care if it will make me happy. Even if it will make me miserable, I still want it, which is stupid. And is it just when that, and it's like a strong pull, like when that comes up, to just not proceed?
Yes, absolutely. You have to understand that the more you proceed in the path of unhappiness, the hotter the fire, the more intense.
Wow.
So and sometimes we feel and we think that, oh my God, I can't stop,
Yeah.
That's false. You can't stop. And it may seem that I can, if I stop, I will be unhappy. But when you try it, when you stop proceeding in the path of unhappiness, even though you may feel, if I stop, I will be more unhappy, you will find that's not true. You will actually get the result. You will get an immediate result of that will clarify to you, that will validate for you that yes, you are making the right decision. And the more you do not continue to proceed in the direction of the unhappiness, even though it may feel really important for you, the more you do not, the easier it will be to not be pulled in that direction again and again. I mean, the less you will be pulled in that direction again and again. And it's your life, it's not, I mean, this is a good time, it's a good time for you to experiment with that. Because why not now, you know? Why later? You can experiment now with that.
I have one more question. So in terms of friendships, or like yeah. So I'm just using like emphasizing like people outside of my family, like people that I choose in my life. And yeah, sometimes like there's the awareness that like it's more like the friendship or the relationship, the relating, there's a lot of ignorance in the time that we meet. Like and uh and so there's like a feeling of I don't want to keep that going. I don't wanna, but then at the same time I don't really trust that. I don't trust that decision.
So you're saying that there are some friendships that you're drawn to, but you perceive some ignorance in the relationship and you don't want to continue? Is that the day?
Yeah, it's more like ignorance and like when we gather in the conversations that take place, or
Well, yeah, it depends what your interest in the friendship is. You know, sometimes we have friends that we have common interests together. We both like to play the violin, or we have friends because they're good cooks. They invite us to some. Or we have friends just because for companionship, you know, and just sort of being together and enjoying.
so in this case it's like so they're Arabs and they're Muslims and they're very much, so my interest is just I like they're beautiful, like, and I love the hearing the language.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
so that's
right.
That's what I love. But in
right.
terms of the conversations that take place and
Right.
all that, like I don't enjoy.
Right.
I don't enjoy it.
You know, there are some birds that come to the bird feeder and they pick a grain, throw it, pick a grain, throw it, pick a grain. And that they like it, they enjoy it, and they fly away. You know, so you know, you can just grab the seed that you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Bird, you know. And you know, let people be what they are. I mean, as long as they're not sort of trying to get you into their camp or trying to tell you how to live your life, etc. Then
Well, there's that.
what?
There's that goes on.
Right. So that you have to sort of negotiate. Is it something that is tolerable to you, or it's something that's intolerable? If it's intolerable, it's too intense, and then that's not the place where you go to grab the good seed, you know. There are other bird feeders.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Hello, Holger.
Magdi, yesterday you shared something beautiful about holding God's hand. And then the fear came up, maybe I'm just squeezing too hard.
You can't squeeze too hard God's hand, you know. You know, it's okay to squeeze God's hand really hard. It's good. It's okay. Because you're squeezing the right hand, the correct hand. You're squeezing the right hand, not the wrong hand. It's a good squeeze. That's a good squeeze.
Thank you.
God is love. There is no limit to God's love. No limit. Any questions?
Magdi,
Yes, Rajni.
when you were on the path, what was the biggest misconception in retrospect that helped you see your true nature more clearly?
Rajni, what was when I was what? When I was
Like before you were self-realized, what was it in retrospect that you were not seeing that kept you from seeing your true nature?
it's like the story of the king and queen's son who somehow forgot who he was and went into the village and lived in the village for many years. And then he starts to recollect that, oh, wait a minute. He is not who he currently thinks or believes he is or feels he is. He starts to recollect that he is the son of the king and the queen, that he has infinite love and power and wealth, and he starts to recollect that. But because he lived in the village for so many years, he has children, and he has a couple of wives, maybe, or has old debts, that some of which he is paid and some of which he hasn't fully paid yet, and he's got a small business that's going on now with a partner who's maybe cheating on him. He's dealing with that issue, and he's got a lawyer, and he's got a court appointment, in 2 weeks, and there are all these things happening. He's got maybe non-for-profit organization where he's helping, some of the poorer people or the more needy people in the village, and so there are all these things happening, and he's recollecting more and more that he's the king and queen's son. So although he gets that clarity of who he is, there are all these relationships, some of which can, you know, now he's really on the way to the solutions to all these problems. All these are going to come to resolution now, because he's got infinite wealth and infinite power, you know. And yet, he is there, 2 children and wives, and there's still that, right? All along, he was the king and queen's son, you know, and all along he had that infinite wealth available to him, but unknowingly. Now he has it knowingly. So there is that's completely available to him. Infinite potential is completely available to him. The end of his worries about everything, about anything, end of his worries, but not the end of his engagement and some of his responsibility and some of these. So there is that parable that I wanted to share with you. Also, like an iceberg that breaks off from the North Pole and starts to drift slowly with the current, very slowly, drifting towards warmer waters, and it's broken off from the iceberg. It's no longer going to go back and reconnect with the iceberg. It's realize its freedom, but takes a while for the sun that's beating on it, and the warmer water is slowly dissolving the iceberg. But I think your question maybe was it specific about my experience, was it?
Well, I feel like this direct path is not that direct for me, and I feel that I'm missing something. I seem to grasp the points, you know, that the sages say. I was just wondering if there was anything particular for you that helped you go from understanding it mentally to kind of experiencing it as you're one with the world.
Because my interest was like a really passion for truth, for happiness. I couldn't tolerate unhappiness, but it was still there, although I couldn't tolerate it. There were traces of unhappiness. I could sense them, I could feel them, and so I was looking, inquiring, investigating. I knew that happiness is it. Not like conceptually, but in my bones, you know, in a way, I knew it. But peace and happiness were like calling me. It calls all of us. It's calling us to, and I was not interested in compromising, making a compromise with unhappiness. Somehow, something within me kept this looking and this wondering and this, and to be honest with myself, to sort of really see that below this veneer that seemed to be so lovely, there was a little angst. So I was just somehow not to compromise with myself, not to cheat myself, not to, and it's, God appears to those who love her, and she appears in every way. I recall a very, very seemingly awful, very, very difficult time that I was going through psychologically in my life and in relationships. That I thought I was beyond that. It's like being hit by a truck. But just before meeting Francis, just before meeting Francis, I was living through that.
So did he say something that was like a light bulb, or was it just like a nominal thing being in his presence?
Well, with Francis, I had for, I don't know, a few months, I would say maybe 6 months, that questions. I was asking him questions. I wanted to comprehend what he was saying, because my path was this Zen path. I hadn't come from the Advaita. I didn't know any non-duality. I wasn't familiar with that. With that method, it was mostly Zen and Krishnamurti and just open contemplation. Not to any particular school. So I wanted to comprehend what he was. So I was asking a lot of questions, and also I was sharing with him some of the what was going through, what was happening in my life at that moment, at that time, and I think it was like a little bit. My experience was a little bit more like the sun. How in the morning it's dark and then gets lighter. And
Yeah, great.
Yeah, gradual. And at some moment, it's daylight. So you realize it's daylight, but you don't know exactly when. When did the daylight happen? I didn't know when the daylight happened, so it wasn't. So it was after the fact, in a way, and then I realized, oh, it's daylight, But in the past, way, over the decades, there were like these sudden flashes of understanding, and many were not so
obvious.
Some were like, many were not so obvious, and also in life, living family, work, and mother and brother, all of that, building a business and another business, and life, in itself also was it felt like like life in ways like the washing machine, it's how it tumbles. They have like 18 cycles. Now they have, I don't know how many cycles is. You take the manual to read, this setting and that. It's like, it was like that. I remember there were times, where I knew that how my life was like definitely not the way I wanted it to be. It was just way too intense, way too. But I didn't know the way. I knew how I wanted them, just simpler, more ease, more peace, less complication, less dealing with less people who are crazy. Crazy, I mean, well, but it took many years to disentangle, like you have a puzzle, or it took many years, but I knew which direction I wanted to go. But you don't cross the river in one step, There are many islands, you go from but it didn't matter because you get a glimpse of God. When you get a glimpse of God, then God is alive within you. You always have that, and there is magic, in that. What is needed, just what is needed arises, for you. You may not comprehend it at the time, but Rashmi, because you are in, you attend Francis and you show up here, and you are in the right place. You're in the right place.
Sometimes it seems as if we are using all these things that we say are not God. I mean, eventually everything is God, but it's not an object, right? Initially, that's the first understanding. But we are using objects like thoughts and perceptions and to find out who I really am, which is not, it's like a little bit of mental contortions.
Yeah. The mind needs to get on board. Also, it may feel like at some point it's like mental contortion, but there is the process of the mind activities, the engagement of the mind that is directed in the right direction, sort of moving the right direction, that would come to the understanding. So there is mind activity that may at some time seem to be convoluted or contorted, but the understanding will just, restore an order that is essential for the mind. What you need to comprehend is that everything that you imagine yourself to be, that you take to yourself to be, that you remember yourself to be, that you think you are, that you feel you are, is not that which you are. That which you are is not defined or comprehended by the mind, but it is comprehended via itself. It's not a comprehension like a mental comprehension. It's
like a knowing.
Like a
knowing.
Yeah, like a knowing. Jean Klein used the term apperception, or maybe it was Krishnamurti, apperception. It's a sort of a being knowing, being knowing. So rather than referencing thoughts, perceptions, and sensations, explore the referencing yourself as the reality, as the source, as the not the formless aspect of being. Not just the form aspect, but the formless aspect. So yes, there is seemingly a form, but there's also the formless, that which comprehends, the comprehension, that which knows, yes, the knowingness. So, and when you are engaged in activities in the world, family, work, or whatever, don't make them the end, your goal. Just engage in them like the wind engages with a leaf that's falling off the tree. It has no. So engage in the family, with the work, without giving it the importance of the vital importance. So yes, they're important, but it's not that important. Yeah, my kids, yeah, hopefully they'll be happy, wealthy, but maybe not. Whatever their path is. Sometimes we say, give to God what belongs to God, or trust God's doing. So not to grab on, not to hold on in the life, how you're living, not to give importance to some way in which things should be. And I know it's sometimes difficult. It goes against your feeling. Like you feel, it's got to be this way, and the house has to be this way. My kids have to be this way. Work has to be this way. The car has to be. I understand that, and that's. So we lighten that up. Like dilute it. Dilute it a little bit.
Don't take it that seriously.
Yeah, right.
I know you say benevolent indifference, but it's like, I understand it, but it's hard to execute it. You get so swept up with things.
Absolutely. It's hard on one hand, Rashmi, and on the other hand, you are consciousness. You are infinite potential. And there's no limitation to God's light, to God's wisdom, to God's capacity, to God's potential. So yes, one could say it's hard, it's difficult, but it's not that difficult. It's, after all, everything that we perceive, everything that we experience is a dream. Where is my mother now? Where is my father now? Where is my grandmother now? It's just the love, the love, the formless. So that which has form, which appears, is constantly shifting. It's like sometimes there are these ways of perceiving where you're seeing a cube, but you look from another angle, you perceive it or something.
Like the paradigm shifts. It'll be an old lady or a young lady.
Yes, absolutely. So in a way, at the mind level, it's like that. The mind level, it's a sort of a kaleidoscopic. It's a cube, but then it's a hexagon, and it's trying, not to sort of rigidify your what you perceive, and of course, like give it importance. The importance we always give to the world, to relationships, to kids, to family, to work, is equal to the importance that we give to the illusion of me. The illusion. So that's the me. That's we define the me is defined via the importances we're giving to all these things, and how we're holding on and pushing in that way, in this way, and right, this gotta make it fit this way. You say this is the me in play, in ignorance in play.
Yeah.
So, and it's and all of that passes, but that which doesn't pass, that which doesn't pass, something else. You know, the sages, the rishis, they're not speaking some theoretical nonsense. They're speaking their words are full of silence. And we recognize that. We recognize it. It's recognized deeply within our being. Not at the mind level, but deeply within our being. So we live our high understanding, our highest understanding. This is how, in a way, the vasanic process is addressed by living as consciousness. So we to sort of, for our understanding to lived understanding that's living itself in our life, in our body, in our mind.
So even if I don't feel at a given moment that I am infinite consciousness, if I remind myself I'm infinite consciousness and act accordingly, is that
Yes, absolutely.
good?
Absolutely. The more we remind ourselves of God, of infinite consciousness, that's a good reminder. And the more we remind ourselves that we are this person who should become powerful, successful, have a great family, have a great, the more we are deepening ignorance, deepening the sense of separation, me, my family, my tribe. Of course, always remind yourself of God, infinite consciousness. Infinite consciousness means one reality. It's all is one. The other is myself. Myself meaning God's self. My children are not my children. They're God's children. There is nothing that is mine. Everything is thou, and thy will be done. My business is to love you. And here I am. In every step, in every action, in every gesture, in everything I do, I'm expressing my love to you.
Really grateful, Magdi. Thank you for taking the time to help me through all this. Thank you.
Very lovely. Lovely to be with you all. Thank you, Trish. Nice to see you, Trish. Malcolm, Zoe, Esther, Kelly, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Magdi.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Magdi.